All right, we're back. Graveyard Shift. You won't know what we're laughing about. Graveyard Shift Movie Podcast, episode 124, Tyler. This week we're doing the episode real late. My eyes are all sleepy. It's
I'm
gonna
opening
be
a candy bar.
it's
It's
gonna
alright.
be a great episode. If Tyler sounds different in between the last episode and this episode, uh, his computer just died on him. It pulled a real Coco and just fucking started
Too
seizing
soon.
up.
Too soon.
Started seizing up, and then eventually it was just pieced out. So Tyler's on a brand new computer for this episode. So that's cool. I will say, can I say, like, I feel bad, all the stuff going on. Selfishly though, it is nice when other people are having the computer problems and it wasn't me this time. Since I went through a year of problems, like 95% of me is like, oh man, that sucks, buddy. But then the other five is like, yeah. Tyler's like, all right, I'm done with the podcast. He fucking
Mm, mm.
leaves. But anyway, episode 124, and we're here to talk about Curse of Chucky from 2013, 9 years after Seed of Chucky. Yeah. Yeah, Seed of Chucky was '04. So, 9 years, almost a whole decade without the little Chuckster dude running around. This movie was straight to video. It didn't have a theatrical release. The next one is the same, Cult of Chucky. Those two are straight to videos. Even though it's made by all the same people, but like we covered, Seed of Chucky was just such a flop that they just couldn't get theatrical releases. Um, and then eventually, when they do the remake, that one's in a theater. But these two are straight to video. That being said, though, I think this movie is really fucking good. I really like it. I'm gonna give it a 7. It probably would have gotten higher, but I don't like one part specifically that's important to the story, and I don't like it. So I'm giving it a 7. It would have gotten higher, but some plot points they came up with, I was like, nah, I care less. What? I couldn't care less for this. That's the phrase. So anyway, Tyler, what are you gonna score this one, and what candy bar are you eating?
Start with the candy bar thing. I
Okay.
found 6 cases of Snickers bars just for Halloween, and they
Mm-hmm.
come in 2 little skulls.
Oh fuck.
So think of like 2 fun bite size, but they're big. They were 3 cents each.
God damn.
I bought 2 cases,
Yeah.
and it cost me like $4. I was like, what? Um, they're not that good though. They're
I
they're
Snickers favorite candy bar, but it hurts my teeth nowadays. Every time I eat it, it hurts my tooth, and I keep expecting that I'm gonna have like a cavity whenever I go to the dentist next time, but I never do. It's just my teeth can't take it anymore. That like sweetness seeping in, can't do it. Anyway, sorry. Though. Go ahead.
but yeah, I give this movie a 3.
God damn.
I know. Like when I heard your review, I went, "Ooh, we're gonna be disagreeing on this one."
We are.
And I just didn't understand any of it. Like I did, I understood all of it, but like I don't know.
I don't know. It's cool as fuck.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about it. Oh wait, I
Yeah.
wrote notes for this.
No,
You want
we're
to read
gonna
my notes
fight.
first or after?
Well, we'll do a spoiler warning because you never.
Oh well, yeah, but I mean, we'll do a spoiler warning. But
Yeah.
uh, it it's one of those things to where I feel like if you watch the first movie
Mm-hmm.
and then watch this movie,
Yeah.
it would be a lot better. But we've watched the way we watched them in order, right? We watched the
Uh
first
huh.
one and then the second one, and they got funnier as they went and more slapstick, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it, right? And now the tone's not set, so where you're waiting for like comedy to happen, and it just never has.
Well, I did tell you that this was a reset. Like they went back to scary movie Chucky, not comedy Chucky.
You did. You warned me about it,
I did.
but
I tried to tell you.
I wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
It just seemed like the mood was weird. Um, I'm gonna shit all over the music.
Wow.
That's like one of my biggest pet peeves was like
The little piano in the background and stuff.
the whole everything.
Yeah.
I'd say, hold on, let me copy it here. I'll copy paste my notes,
All right, well, you do that.
and then you read these
Well,
out loud, and then we'll go over everything.
yeah. Coming off of Bride and Seed, there were two very like over
Bad
the
movies.
top bad movies.
Well, Seed was bad. Bride was. I can understand what Bride was, but
Like I said, I still think Bride was worse than Seed. Like I got some enjoyment out of some of the comedy in Seed, and Bride, though that main couple really drug the movie down. But going from that to the more serious Chucky, I don't know. It was the right time. I was sick of the jokester, and I liked getting back to sort of. Also, Chucky has some good facial expressions in this movie, even though clearly the budget was dropped from the last time we have watched it to now, because his moves were a lot more puppet-ish. It wasn't as smooth looking. And when we get to the scenes where it's just a CGI Chucky, it's pretty bad. It looks like 2007 like Xbox 360 just Chucky graphics. But I don't know. Like I said, I like it. It is weird though, because like still at this point, I would say Child's Play 3 is still my favorite Chucky, and I feel like that fell right in the sweet spot of Chucky was doing comedy, but he was also like scary guy as well. He wasn't just a total goof getting tickled and shit. So yeah, I don't know, but
they tried to go back to being a horror film in this,
mm-hmm.
and still keep that little edge of dark comedy.
Yeah.
And like the first, I don't know how long the movie was. Let's say an hour and a half.
It was an hour 36. But
Oh,
really,
good.
it was probably like, it felt, like I said, also, I don't know how long Seed was, but Seed felt long. And this movie went by, like, it was at the end of the movie out of nowhere. And I was like, oh, cool, we're at the end of the movie.
But until Chucky starts talking, I thought they were nailing like the original horror aspect of it. And then once he started talking, I was like, pick a lane. You can't, I was like, you got to go down one or the other.
Yeah.
And they try to do both, and I'm just like, it's not working for me. What's that guy from America's Got Talent? That's gonna be a no for me, dog, or whatever.
That's American Idol, please.
Oh,
Randy Jackson? Or Reggie? Randy Jackson? I think it's Randy.
I don't.
Not 100% though.
I didn't even know what show he was from. So
yeah. So maybe you're not
maybe I'm not.
Anyway, well, hey, spoiler
but-
warning for Curse of Chucky. We're gonna ruin everything about it. So you've been warned. Also, I feel like every episode we've done so far of the Chucky has been like an hour and a half. I feel like this movie's pretty fast to go through. Like I don't think this is. I don't know. It didn't seem like it. Just seemed like it was very straightforward. There wasn't like a bunch of little things you had to talk about. So, I appreciate that.
It went. It didn't waste no time. There was one scene that wasted a little bit of time.
What was that?
The whole laptop video conferencing thing.
Yes.
That was the only scene, but I know why they did it. But.
Yeah, I know why they did it. Also, that leads up to simultaneously my favorite part and one of the worst parts of the movie. But the whole time she was doing that, I just couldn't help but be like, you're basically, I mean, they weren't like diddling themselves, but you're basically sex chatting in your underwear in a room that you share with this little girl, and you're on the other side with her mom. And I couldn't help but be like, man, this doesn't seem like this is a very good mom who she's like fucking got this lady perving out on her and sharing the room. I don't know. It weirded me out when that was happening. But
I don't know. I was kind of mad, not because of that, but they made Chucky seem like a child molester in this.
how many times have I been telling you, Tyler? The first movie I said, didn't he give off Chomo vibes? And you were like, I don't know what you're talking about. Now look at us. Here we are, Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd.
Fucking look at us. Who would have thought we would have ever been here? The hot ones. But anyway, yeah, I'm telling you, he was like, I like hugs and shit. And yeah, I'm telling you. So, yeah, he did it.
He did.
Also, can I just say that? So I popped in the Blu-ray for this, and the previews for the Blu-ray, the first preview that popped up was for Machete Kills, and I was like, oh fuck. So this movie came out around the same time as Machete Kills. So that's pretty cool.
When did this come out?
2013.
By the way, that nanny, hottest chick in the movie by far, right? Like,
I kept thinking that it was that girl from Ted 2, but it wasn't. That chick, that blonde chick, and she's been in other shit, but Ted 2 is what sticks out to me. Okay.
I never watched the Ted movies. Like,
you never watched the Ted movies?
I don't like Mark Wahlberg.
Wow. But he made Pain and Gain with The Rock.
Never seen it. You know why?
Shit.
Because I don't like Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Amanda Seyfried is her name.
Wasn't Brad Dourif's daughter one of the people in this?
Yeah, she's Mika. Or Nika. She's the main character.
The wheelchair lady?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought she would have been like the little one.
No, she grown. she grown up. Yeah, so like Tyler said, Brad Dourif's daughter is the main character in this movie. Nika Pierce. Shout out to her. She's in a wheelchair in this movie, which in real life she's not in a wheelchair. So this movie is technically problematic, Tyler, because they have an able-bodied
person
playing a disabled person. Yeah, so I randomly saw on Twitter today someone was upset about, the guy from Glee was like, I wouldn't be my character because a disabled person should play them or something. It kicked up a whole thing again, and so it just so happened that we watch a movie with a crippled lady not being played by a crippled lady. But yeah, Brad Dourif's daughter Fiona Dourif is playing Nika Pierce in this movie, the main character. Also, it's funny watching this because you don't see it here, but in the Chucky TV show, when they do flashbacks to like young Charles Lee Ray, they have Fiona Dourif playing Charles Lee Ray, and they just like dress her up to look like a man. And I think I've told you this, how they have her acting and they have Brad Dourif doing the voiceover for her, so it's not her talking and trying to do an impersonation, but the whole time it's just Charles Lee Ray walking around with this big dump truck ass because she's built that way. And so like the whole time it's like, goddamn, Charles Lee Ray is clapped up like just and I couldn't help but laugh every time I saw Charles Lee Ray in that show. But yeah, Nika Pierce, the main character in a wheelchair, like we said, and at the beginning of the movie, she shares a house with her mom, and they get a package, a mysterious package. It seems like that happens a lot in these Chucky movies. There's a mysterious package with no name. How many? I think it's happened in 2, 3, Seed, and this one. I don't remember it happening in the first one, and I don't remember it happening in Bride, but it might have. So I think more than 60% of the movies have had a mysterious package containing Chucky in them. But yeah, Nika gets this package, and she's sort of like flirting with the package delivery guy. And And it seems like he's flirting back. But there is like a weird thing where like the mom closes the door and she's like, "Oh, honey, he was just being nice," like trying to like downplay whatever the guy was saying. And so Nika's sort of like, "Oh, all right." That was the dude I was telling you to tell me if you thought he had big teeth,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah. I knew because it was so early,
Yeah.
but
I don't know. I was watching him. I was like, why his teeth are like that? Like every time he would talk, they were just there. Fucking fix your teeth. Um, so they open up the box. Tyler, could you guess what was in the box?
I was hoping it was Jennifer Tilly.
It wasn't though.
I know.
Yeah, it was little Chucky, and by little Chucky I mean he's kind of chunky Chucky in this movie. Tyler's pointed that out many times. That it looks like Chucky has put on a little bit of weight in
He's got a big
between.
head and a big body. Like, but
Yeah.
his legs and arms are small.
Yeah. I don't know. Also, it's Chucky missing the staples and shit. It's just it looks like a normal good guy doll now. Um, so they're like, oh well, who sent this? But there's no name on the package. So Nika's like, huh, weird. And so she goes like rolling away, and then the mom is like, yeah. And then she just immediately goes over and drops it in the trash. And all I could think of is like Chucky gets thrown in the trash in every one of these movies. But you made a good point. You were like, yeah, let me take this package that showed up that doesn't belong to us and just throw it in the trash. Not maybe, I don't know, look for who it was supposed to go to.
Or call
Like,
somebody or anything.
yeah, like ask the
Like, you know
neighbors.
what? We're just gonna throw this away. We don't need this.
Yeah,
I was like,
which
didn't make any sense to me.
you
But
know,
I was like, all right.
to be fair, do we ever like see the neighborhood that they're living in? Like we see
No.
a shot of the outside of the house at some point, but I don't think you ever see the neighborhood. So maybe they don't live around anybody. Because I was thinking maybe like ask the neighbors, but maybe it's just a solo house. But they made sure not to show like where they're living. Um, so yeah, she throws them in the trash. That night comes around. Nika wakes up because she hears her mom screaming. Um, she goes looking into her mom's room, but the mom's gone. But we do notice like a bunch of bottles of medication and shit. And there's a picture on the bedside table, which isn't anyone in a movie before. It's just like the mom's husband slash Nika and what's the other girl's name? Like Marsha or Martha or something?
Barbara?
Is it Barbara?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've watched it.
It hasn't. It was literally it was 15 minutes ago. The movie ended.
Just give me this, God.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, and so like their dad. We'll learn that later. But Sanika goes rolling along. She gets into this elevator that they've made. I assume they made it because of her disability. I assume it wasn't in that house when they bought it. Um. And so she gets in this little like elevator lift thing and she goes down to the bottom floor. And I immediately wrote my notes, oh man, someone's totally got to get killed with this elevator, right? Spoiler, no. And it never happened. I was honestly shocked that no one got crushed with it. But they
Well, I mean, it kind of came into play later, but yeah, no one was
yeah.
mangled by the elevator. You're right.
It seems like that's just obviously what would happen, but it didn't happen. So she gets to the bottom floor. She's like rolling, and we get this shot of Nika like seeing something, and then the camera moves, and we see this little puddle of blood like spreading out, and we see her reflection in the blood. Where we see the mom laying there dead. We learn later that like she's dead by scissors.
Yeah, which I didn't get. I mean, anyways.
Yeah. And so yeah, the blood
It
spreads
makes
out.
sense.
Also, I like to Tyler messaged me. He was like, "I'm so fucking colorblind. I didn't know if that was blood or a puddle of goo, like green goo or
I thought it was
whatever."
piss from Glenn and Glenda. I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, and so yeah, we see a reflection, and then it pans over, and we see Chucky sitting in the corner, and we get the title card of Curse of Chucky, and that's how the movie starts. Like I mentioned, she's dead by scissors. Apparently, the mom's fucking, all that medication and shit. They think that she killed herself. They're like, oh, yeah, she must have did this to herself. Which we see later on that it is put to where like the mom is holding the scissors, but still, that's a very awkward way to kill yourself. I don't know how many suicides by self scissor to the stomach we get a year, but I imagine it's not very high. But yeah, they're like, oh, she must have killed herself. But Nika's like, oh, that's so. She was on her medicine and stuff. Why didn't I, realize something was wrong? So since she died,
Largest pair of scissors I've ever seen, by the way.
it's a pretty big pair of scissors. It's one of those like gnarly. It's all metal. Like there's no like covering on the handle. Is that what you call it? Where you put your fingers, the snip?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I bet you there's a real term for it. And some fucking guy is watching right now, and he's like, actually, that's the.
Technically, that's called the Jarvis or something.
Yeah. And then
Like,
Tony Stark pops out. So yeah, the mom killed herself.
Well, this Tony Stark, so
Yeah. And Nika starts getting visits from people and shit, and it ends up being like her family comes to visit. So it's her sister, Barbara or Martha or whatever her name is that we mentioned. It's her husband. I thought his name was Peter forever, but I think his name is Ian. I'm pretty sure that's his name is Ian in the movie. Their daughter Alice, and then their nanny, who I have no idea what the fuck her name is. But
Lisa or Kimberly?
Two very different names, by the way, Tyler. They not even rhyme or the same letters.
She gets up in the middle of the night and she goes to help the nanny, and she's like, "What's the daughter's name?"
Alice.
She goes to help Alice, and she's like, "Are you helping Alice? Are you helping?" And it's either Lisa or Kimberly, and I don't know which it is.
All right. So. Well, it's one of those. And so yeah, it's them, and her sister brought along a priest with her because the mom killed herself, and that means she's condemned to hell and stuff because of the whatever. And so they're like, oh, we need to. What's up?
This is the biggest part of the movie that made me mad. Not mad, weird, I guess. That dude is typecast as a Mexican dude in everything he does. He always has a super thick accent. He's always like, you just keep going from there. Nothing in this. He's a completely white guy. He's like, hey, what's up? Not white guy, but he's a Latino actor, but he speaks with no accent, and he's just like, hey, what's up? It threw me off.
I hope this doesn't sound bad, because I don't mean it bad. It's just how his head was shaped. I could not unsee him as West Borderland when he used to like dress up as his monkey character. And I know that sounds bad, but I don't mean it bad. It's just how his head is shaped.
Good Lord.
It's just how his head is shaped. I'm going to put up a picture here of like West Borderland in the it sounds terrible to say, but I don't mean it bad. It's just the head shape, okay? So we're gonna move on though, but the picture's gonna be here.
I don't even know who you are anymore.
Yeah. So they're like, we need to pray for her, but Nika's like, nah, I'm all right, And they're like, oh, the priest dude says something about like, we don't condemn those who do this sort of thing. We pity. And Nika's like, yeah, well, we've had enough pity for, 2 lifetimes or some bullshit. So the priest dude is like, oh, okay.
You got me.
Yeah. So after that conversation, Nika's like, oh, Alice, I got a present for you. And she turns to look over to where Chucky was sitting in the chair, but Chucky's gone. Ooh, and Nika's like, oh, that's weird. He was right there. So
no one ever notices this doll just vanishing on its own.
Yeah. So Alice needs to go to the bathroom. So the mom is like, oh, why don't you guys show her where the bathroom is and where her room is? So the nanny takes Alice with her. And then the dad goes to follow, but before he does that, he's like looking down the hall. and it makes it look like, oh, this dude's perving on like the nanny's ass as she's walking away, and the mom turns around and gives him a look and shit, and he like gives her a look back, and he's like, oh, nothing, and he goes walking after them. Um, as the kid goes in to like piss, they're outside talking, and we hear a conversation that later on I was like, oh, okay, where she tells the dude how much she's getting paid to be a nanny, and like it's more than I guess like what money she gives him for whatever they're doing, and he's like, oh man, she's paying you more than me, and then later I was like, oh yeah. But so this little kid goes in to take a pee, and she's peeing, and then it pans over, and we see like this. It's not a walk-in shower; it's a roll-in shower.
It's weird. I was kind of envious of that shower, to be honest with you.
And
Because there's no tub. You just like walk in. It's like
Yeah.
a gym or something.
Yeah. And there's like a shower wheelchair sitting there that's all metal and shit that no one ever got in, to my knowledge. I don't think you ever see anyone get in that wheelchair. I thought like for sure that someone would use it, but no one ever does.
So both of us are, able to walk around and stuff.
Yeah, take that, cripples.
Wasn't going there at all, but so goddamn, I can't even say it now. I'm pretty sure you use that like because it's stainless steel, so it doesn't rust and everything like that.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, still on that note, take that, cripples. So
this is what we get for doing a podcast at 10 o'clock at night. I don't know what's going on.
This is just you being a weirdo.
Listen, man. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so she's peeing. She looks over at the shower. and we see the curtain like moving, and she's like, oh, what the fuck's going on over there, So she gets done, and she goes walking over the curtain, and she moves it aside, and we see Chucky sitting there. And this girl is instantly like, oh, look at you, But I'm sitting here, and obviously, once again, we have the benefit of knowing who this is. But I'm looking at this doll, and I'm like, at no point does this doll look cute. Like, he's just like staring at her. And she's like, oh, look at you, And yeah, she's like, oh, what's your name? And then she goes to grab him, and Chucky's hand kicks up. And so it cuts away, and we hear her screaming. And this is another part that they never come back to that I thought for sure was going to come back, where the girl had locked the door. They had this whole conversation about, oh, don't lock the door. No one's going to come in. But she locks it anyway. So then they hear her screaming. They're trying to get in. And out of nowhere, the nanny pulls out like a nail file and stuff and lockpicks the lock and just gets in instantly. And I was like, oh, she's going to have to pick a lock later on. But she never does. But apparently she's nifty with picking locks, I guess. Yeah, so they open up the door, but the girl is standing there with Chucky, and she's like, "Oh, he scared me. Look at this guy," So nothing bad happened.
It doesn't explain the scream, but hey, let's not.
No, I guess it's just him reaching up, but downstairs, Barbara. I'm just gonna call her the sister. The sister is trying to convince Nika to sell the house, because she's like, listen, there's this place closer that you can move so we can see you more. Plus, with like the half of the money you'll get, because the mom left the house to both of them. It's in both of their names. So with the half of the money that you'll get, you'll be set for life and shit. And Nika is like, this isn't about me. And so the sister is like, okay, well, listen, we have sort of been in a tough spot recently, Ian's having to work at Starbucks, and things are getting so bad, I might have to send Alice to public school and shit, And the preacher even, like, kicks in, and he's like, yeah, she really wanted to go to Alkford Elementary or some bullshit.
St. Augustine or something, yeah. It was some fancy Catholic school.
Yeah, and so, she's trying to convince Nika to sell the house, but Nika's like, I don't want to talk about it right now, So she's like, listen, we're all here, let's just have some dinner. And the sister's like, you're going to cook for fucking all 6 of us? And the Alice is like, 7, because she's holding Chucky. And she's like, yeah, it's no problem. So then they get to fucking cooking, and Nika is sitting there chopping tomatoes, okay? And she's like going full like downward swings on these tomatoes. Like, I put a note in my thing, like, how the fuck is this bitch cutting tomatoes like this? And then Tyler messaged me, and he was like, whenever you start cooking, never fucking cut tomatoes like this. He was
Why
like,
did you do
don't.
the nerd voice for me when I?
No, I didn't do that.
Maybe it's because she's handicapped and she's sitting lower than the
Yeah.
counter, to where she has to kind of chop like that because she can't do. Well, no, I'm doing it with my arm right now. You can definitely chop above you. So
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to make logistical reasons for it. The real reason is just so they could get that sound of the knife hitting the cutting board
yeah.
while it's zooming in on Chucky's face,
I just think that homegirl acts like her dad looks.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Okay. So they get everything ready, and I thought they made like pasta, but it turns out they made vegan chili. So it kind of just looks like marinara sauce with some cheese on top. But as they're about to set the plates, Chucky fucking grabs some rat poison, and we see him sprinkling it on a plate, but we don't see which plate he sprinkled it on. So when they put the plates down, it keeps circling, and it's kind of like this cool, like, Russian roulette table of who's gonna get the fucking poison. Also, I do like when they're walking up to the table, Chucky is already sitting at like the seat, and the little girl grabs him. She's like, let's sit over here. I like to imagine he was like, I'm trying to fucking eat. What are you doing? So yeah, they sit down, and they go through a couple like fake outs where like at first the little girl's about to like take a bite, and the dad's like, wait, and he's like, I want to make a toast to what family or whatever, and then they're eating.
No, he's to the chef.
Oh, okay. And then they're
Doesn't
eating,
matter.
yeah, and Ian, like, he takes a bite and he's like, oh my god, and he's like, this is amazing, and it cuts off. The little girl is like, this tastes funny, and the mom, not subtle at all, basically says that she doesn't like it either, because she's like, come on, it's not that bad, like, it's like, oh, okay. So finally,
yeah, she's super passive aggressive through
yeah,
the whole movie. So not so passive, even just aggressive.
yeah,
but
just yeah. So finally, after so much of this like fake out, who's getting it, it's going around the table, and finally it starts zooming in on the priest dude, and we see he's like sweating and shit, and he's like, and also it's kind of, I mean, obvious that the one guy who's not part of the family is probably gonna take the first kill here. But yeah, he's like, he's sweating and shit, and they're like, oh, are you all right? And the sister is like, oh, father, are you ill? And I was like, who the fuck talks like that? But anyway, he's like, no, I got an appointment. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for the chili and stuff. So he drives away, and then we immediately cut to a crime scene, red and blue lights and shit, and we see that there was a head-on collision, and this family, like this wife and husband, are dead over on the side, and the father is in the car, and he hit him head-on, and they think that he was drunk driving, but the cop who just arrived at the scene is like, nah, that couldn't be what it is, and they're like, how do you know? And he's like, he doesn't drink, he's my sponsor. So the guy's in like AA and stuff, and there was a scene at dinner where they offered him wine, but he was like, no, I'm good, and he holds up like his water or whatever.
I'm on Jesus wine, and it was just water.
Yeah.
He didn't say Jesus
He
wine.
didn't. He should have, though. Yeah. And so they go over to him, and he's like pinned in the car, and he's bleeding from somewhere, but they don't know where. And so the cop is like, get him the fuck out of there. He's bleeding to death, And the firefighter's like, I can't make that call. And he's like, come on, this guy's going to die if we don't do something. So they're like, all right. So they
let him die. Oh,
yeah.
No, they don't say that.
So they pull the car apart. And of course, he's been like stabbed through the neck and stuff. So the only thing holding his head together was the car. So when they pull it apart, his head falls over and a bunch of blood and stuff goes shooting everywhere. and he's decapitated and his head rolls into the sea. And then weirdly enough, I'm not sure when this happened, but it pans over and we see that his hand was also severed and he was like clutching his cross in his hand.
His
So
rosary, yeah.
yeah, I'm
I don't
not.
know why. It makes no difference in this movie, but
No, but you know,
it was like, okay.
yeah. Um, yeah. So he's dead. Nika and them will never find out that he's dead. Through the course of this movie, like, because this all takes place in like this whole movie takes place in one day, right? They get the. Oh no, never mind. It must be a couple nights because I imagine that it took them a while to get there after the mom killed herself when they got the package.
Oh yeah, well yeah. But
Yeah.
once they arrive, it's one
One.
night, all the killing.
Yeah. So we go back over to Nika and them, and they're watching like old family tapes and shit of them at like a cookout.
Losers.
Yeah, and then and the nanny, you like how I just agree? I'm like, yeah. And so the nanny is like, "Oh, what happened to your dad?" And they say, "Oh, he drowned a couple weeks before Nika was ever born." Um, and then as they're saying that, the camera pans over, and we see Charles Lee Ray, Brad Dourif with like sunglasses and shit at the cookout, and they're like, "Who is that?" And they're like, "Oh, it must just be, you know, some friend of the family or whatever." And then you know, the Alice comes downstairs and she's like, "Oh, Chucky is missing," so the fucking nanny has to go help her look for Chucky. Um, what was that? I was gonna say something about the Charles Lee Ray thing. I forgot.
About how it was so very awkward that he was just chilling in the corner.
I mean, it was awkward, and later on when we get more scenes with him, it is weird watching them try to convince you that this is Charles Lee Ray when he's like 40 years older than when, when he first saw him. But they try to give him like some makeup to look younger.
Yeah, they did a lot of work on him. The picture, she looks him up on the internet later, and it has a picture of him, and I'm sure it's a real picture.
Yeah.
Looks nothing like the guy that we know, though.
Yeah. But, you know, they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so they go to look for Chucky. Nika is curious about the. I remember what I was gonna say. I was gonna say about the preacher. There was a thing too where before he left, he was looking at Chucky and he was like, "Why does that doll look so familiar?" You know, and then it you know, ends up being the one guy who had suspicions. You know, winds up dead or whatever. But
Did
anyway.
they ever explain how he knew or why he suspected?
Well, I assume it's because he knew all the news stuff from in the past about the you know the killer doll. But yeah, so they go to look for Chucky. Nika wants to find out where this package came from, so she goes over to the phone, but there's no service on her cell phone, and like the landline phone isn't working. I assume it's because of the storm that's blowing through right now, and so like the phones are having trouble getting service. But as they're doing that, fucking Alice like goes in her room, and then the nanny is looking for Chucky, and there's like a couple minute scene of her like walking around looking for Chucky and shit, and like a couple fake out jump scares where like a window blows open and everything. And finally she turns around and the mom is standing there, and she's like, "Oh, you know, what are you doing?" It was right after she noticed like a knife was missing, like the kitchen knife. And she's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And the mom's like, "Nothing." And she starts to say something else, but then the mom rushes in and starts to make out with the nanny. And the big twist is that the husband isn't the sleazy guy who's trying to have an affair with the nanny, but also maybe he is if they're down for it.
Yeah.
And but it turns out that the mom is sleeping with the nanny, and that's why they bring her around everywhere, and that's why they pay her so good and stuff. And it was like, oh man, what a twist. And yeah, so I was excited to see that. Then later, when Tyler ever got to it, because he was a couple minutes behind me, he was like, what a twist. Yeah, so they're having an affair. Downstairs, Chucky winds up sitting next to Ian, and so Nika finds him, and she's like, "Oh, I'll take him upstairs." So she gets in the elevator to take him upstairs, But as she starts ascending, the power like goes out or whatever. So she's stuck in the dark with Chucky. And so she starts like ringing like her emergency bell in the elevator to get someone's attention. And as she's like upstairs, like the mom or the sister hears her, and she's like, "Oh god damn it, I gotta help this bitch again," you know. Very upset about having to help her sister. And so as they're in the dark, we hear like a knife, like a shh, like that, and Nika's like, "What the fuck is that?" You know. And so eventually, the light comes back on, and Chucky has turned his head around, 180, and is looking at her, and she's like, "What the fuck?" And it scares her and shit. But she's like, "All right, I guess nothing too concerning." She doesn't really think about it that much after. Um, so she gets to the top floor. She gives the doll to Alice or whatever, and she's like, "Here you go, you little bitch. Here's your doll." And then she's talking to the sister. And this is the first time that the sister mentions, and I don't know if they ever mention exactly what it's called, but this is the first time the sister mentions a heart problem that Nika has, that apparently is something that is in like 13% of these type of paraplegics that Nika is. And it can be brought on by like stress and stuff. And they mentioned that like she's had an episode before, and they're like, we don't want you to have another one or whatever. And you've been stressed out recently. You need to take it easy. And that's the first time they mention it, and it comes back later, obviously, because why would you mention it if it doesn't? But yeah. I don't think they ever go further into like what problem she actually has. They just establish, heart, if too much stress,
It was something like that. If you're paralyzed at the fifth vertebrae, it's the same place where your heart is, and if it enlarges, it does something. I don't remember exactly, but
it touches your spine.
I mean, maybe, I don't know.
Pops like a balloon.
I mean, you are not a doctor, so I don't think you should be commenting on doctorish things.
The Grinch died like 2 days after that movie ended. When your heart grows that big, just in like a day, that shit, he's fucking dead, dude. Anyway.
You sure there's water in that bottle?
So yeah, they're talking about her heart problem, and then in the middle of them talking, Alice is like, "Oh, Auntie Nika, you're bleeding." And they look down, and sure enough, she's like leaking blood down her leg, and they're like, "What the fuck?" So they move like her gown up, and they see this cut like right below her.
Chico, wow. Sorry.
They see this cut right below her knee, and they're like, "That's a knife cut." And the mom is convinced that you must have did it while you were cooking or whatever, and you just
hold on,
didn't notice. Yeah.
Wait 1 second.
All right.
At this point, that was like 9 hours ago, and there's fresh blood on this cut.
Yeah, it just
and
now
it
started
brand
bleeding.
new. Yeah, but she's like, must have happened when you were cooking.
Yeah, stupid bitch. But but obviously we know that it was a little Chucky when we heard that knife slash earlier. And I think this is finally the point that Nika, if she hadn't before, starts being like, "Hey, I think that guy stabbed me." Like she starts to connect some dots.
She's like, "Listen, guys, a stab in the dark, but I got stabbed in the dark."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?" It's like, now's not time for jokes.
Yeah.
God.
She's like, "I'm not joking." So later on,
no, sorry.
So later on, everyone's like going to bed, and Nika finally gets through to someone from the UPS office, and they're like, "Oh, we don't know exactly where it came from, but we know it came from a criminal evidence depository or whatever," and but it's breaking up. Like she can't hear anything else. All she hears is that part. And she's like, "Come again," but they don't say anything else.
It's crazy. It sounded like you said an evidence locker.
Yeah. Yeah, so Nika is like, "Well, that's weird." So she starts Googling stuff. We go upstairs to Alice and Chucky, who are in bed, and she's like holding them, and it's storming and shit, and she's scared. So finally she pulls out a flashlight and she throws the sheet over herself. And she's like shining the flashlight at Chucky, and she's like, "Chucky, I'm scared." And finally, I don't know how long we're in the movie, maybe like 40 minutes, maybe a little less than that. But finally, Chucky starts laughing, and then he goes, "You fucking should be," you know? And I was like, "Hey, that's my man, Chuck." And then it cuts away before we
Yeah, yeah.
before we see anything. Um, so as that's happening, uh, fucking, this is when the nanny comes up and she's going to bed, and we don't see like Alice in the bed when she walks in, and she gets in like her underwear, and she starts to
It was
like
hot too. It was
yeah,
nice.
and she starts to video call the mom who's in another room beside her sleeping husband, like sex chatting this chick while her daughter's in the room. Once again, seemed weird to me. Um, so as this is happening downstairs, Nika has searched up uh, Chucky doll like evidence or something, or like criminal
It
evidence.
pissed me off that she wrote Chucky doll and not good guy doll.
Yeah,
Even though it says, "Hey, I'm Chucky," I
yeah,
get that, but it just made me so mad.
yeah.
Like, I don't think anyone will
Especially,
ever understand.
especially when all the news headlines were good guy doll and not Chucky
Yeah,
doll. um,
I was, man,
yeah.
livid.
So yeah, she looks it up, and she sees all like the classic stuff. She sees like the slaughter at Clint Military Academy or whatever it was called. It was like the Chicago murder and stuff. And she clicks on the one link, and we see Annie Barclay, and she's like, "Oh, what the fuck is this?" You know? And she's reading like, Annie Barclay says that, this doll killed his family and all this shit. And finally, she starts reading like Charles Lee Ray, and there's a link to like click on a picture of Charles Lee Ray, and she's going to click on it. As this is happening upstairs, uh, Chucky has gotten up behind the chick on the video call and run off, and the mom thinks that Alice is up and like walking around, and she's trying to like be quiet and be like, "Oh, Alice is awake," but the girl can't figure out what she's saying. And so finally, the girl in the room with Alice looks over, and Chucky is standing there by this bucket that's been filling with water that's dripping from the ceiling because of the storm. And the look on his face, he's just like, like I don't know what expression they were going for, but I loved it or whatever it was. It was just so weird. And he kicks over the bucket, and the water rolls over her feet and hits like an outlet, and she starts getting fucking electrocuted. And this one is like, I like all this that's happening except for when she starts burning and her eye like burns out, and it looked really bad, and I was like, ooh, they could have did without this, you know.
Yeah, as it was going, it looked bad. The
Yeah.
CGI electricity getting her looked
Mm-hmm.
bad. And then I think the after looked even it looked bad, but
Yeah. um Also, I did think it was weird because so this causes the mom not to be able to know what's going on, even though all the lights start flickering and everything around her, and she can't piece together. Oh, hey, that's probably not good. But so she can't. Her screen is static, and so I thought that this was going to be cool because it was going to keep Nika from seeing a picture of Charles Lee Ray, because she would have put together, hey, that's the guy that was in the videotape, and it was going to like kill the Wi-Fi or the power or whatever when but it didn't. It just sort of made the screen flash while she's seeing the picture
it
of him.
it made it like staticky,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know, like the internet was very much a thing at this time,
Yeah.
so I don't understand why it didn't do like the choppy,
Yeah.
video thing, because it wouldn't give you static. It would give you like
Yeah.
nothing. It would just go. I was
I don't know. It
so
was a
so angry.
little weird, but anyway, she sees the photo of Charles Lee Ray, and she's like, "Oh fuck, that's that guy that was in that video." Um, so the mom gets up to go check on whatever was happening with her girlfriend, and as she's leaving, the her husband wakes up and he's like, "Oh, you gonna go check on fucking the bitch or whatever?" And she's like, "Yeah, And then I don't know if he insinuated like a three-way or something, But she's like, "Oh, I see the way you look at her," and this is when he goes, "Ditto," and I was like, "Oh fuck, my man knows."
It, like I said, I showed you my. I'll read my notes when we're
I
done,
will
but
when we get done.
it's.
Yeah.
I had the same reaction.
And yeah, and it turns out he had suspected this all along, to the point that he has put a nanny cam in Chucky to get solid evidence that she's cheating on him with the nanny, so that he can take Alice away from her. And I was like,
This comes from nowhere. Like,
yeah.
there's not even a shred of like
They had made
them
him
talking about
seem,
this.
yeah, they had made him seem sort of like just a bumbling husband, like doesn't know what's going on. He's like asleep all the time and stuff. And then all of a sudden he's like a mastermind and he knows, what's going on. Um, so she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not doing anything like that, and he's just like plugging in his ears with his little sleeping things and going back to bed. And so the wife leaves all angry. As she's walking, she finds Chucky and picks him up. And I don't know if she's just hanging out by the stairs or if she's about to go downstairs, but either way, Nika is down at the bottom of the stairs and she's calling up to her. And she's saying, "Hey, put that doll down. You don't know what's going on with that doll." And the mom misunderstands her and thinks that she's telling her that the nanny cam is in the doll. And she thinks that Nika has known the whole time and is jealous that like she has a life and everything and is trying to get her, for some vengeful, something. And Nika's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. You just need to put down that doll." And the mom is like, "Fuck you." And she goes like walking away upstairs. And so she takes Chucky and she goes into the attic to look for Alice, who's still missing at this point. They don't know where she is. Nika is trying to call for someone to come take her upstairs, but obviously the nanny is dead and the dude's plugged up his ears. So eventually she has no choice and she just starts to crawl up the stairs. In the attic, the mom is looking around for Alice, and we see all these paintings of like sunflowers and shit. And it was like, what the fuck is going on with this stuff? And then later I was like, oh. So
Wasn't she painting a sunflower
yeah,
in the very, very beginning?
yeah.
So is that just her favorite flower, or do you think it has something to do with the ending?
I think it has something to do with the ending. Some type of weird. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Like, it threw me for,
I would imagine it has to, be something to do with that. But either way, yeah. So the mom's looking for Alice in here, and she can't find her. And eventually, she starts looking for like the nanny cam on Chucky, but she instead finds a kitchen knife hidden in his overalls. And she does not seem worried at all that she just found it. She seems worried for like a second, like, why is this here? But then she hears a noise behind her, and then she just leaves Chucky there with the knife beside him. And
well, no, this is the weird part. The rocking horse starts rocking
it does, yeah.
for no reason at all. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hold on. I was like, this guy can't move shit with his
set
mind.
it up. He had a string.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't make sense.
It was either very good luck for Chucky or, he's developing new voodoo powers throughout the movies. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, she's, she hears all the, what? Thomas? Speak, please? She turns around. She looks at the horse wobbling. And then eventually, she goes over, or she turns around and Chucky's moved now, and he's higher up. He's perched up, and she's looking at him, and she's like, "What the fuck?" And all of a sudden, it's noticeably that he looks different now. Like, this wasn't here the whole time, but now you can see like there's pieces of like skin kind of hanging, or it doesn't match the rest of his skin tone. And she's like, "What the fuck is that?" And so she starts pulling it away. And underneath, we see the reveal that he's still the stapled up Chucky face.
Oh, hold on.
He's patched himself.
To understand this point, and to understand why this ruins pretty much the whole fucking movie,
Okay.
is like the first 30 minutes of the movie, they do 4 or 5 fucking super close-ups on Chucky's face.
That's why I said.
And you just, like, and I'm talking to where you can see, like, the dust molecules. Like, it is...
Yeah.
the closest close up I've ever seen
Yeah.
in a movie like this. And then all of a sudden you look now, and I'm
Yeah.
colorblind,
Like
so
like I said,
I could tell 100%.
well, yeah, literally the part on his lip, it was like a flap hanging. Like it looked kind of maybe you could give them the excuse that like the adhesive was wearing off because he was sweating or something. Dude, does he sweat? They talk about how for in all these movies, you know, it's anatomically correct, but every time he's getting fucked up in this movie, he never has blood or anything. Like it's always doll parts, like fuzz and stuff coming out. And so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's up with that. It's so weird. Also,
I
it bothers me because it's anatomically correct, but every time they did a close up of him, his mouth is closed. You know, like it's not a mouth that's an actual
yeah.
mouth. Like it would be more of a human mouth until they switch over to where it's, you know, you can tell he's about to move, and then you see it's like an open mouth. But anyway, she peels his skin off. We see he's all, you know, stapled up. And then for some reason she's like, "Oh, this is weird. Let me stick my finger in your mouth." So she she sticks her finger in his mouth, and Chucky's like, "Ah!" Fucking takes a bite, and she goes scurrying back. Chucky picks up the knife, and he goes stalking over to her, and he's like, you know, first he's like, Nika is mine, and then he's like, oh, you got your mother's eyes, and he's like, they were always too fucking close together, and then he stabs her in the eye with a knife.
Best part of the movie, by the way.
It's pretty good. This is just in time for Nika to get to like the very bottom. Like she only has one more flight to get up to where,
Like up in the attic.
yeah, up in the attic. When the door opens up and down from the top of the stairs comes an eyeball just bouncing down the stairs towards Nika, and it lands next to her, and she's like, "Oh my god!" And then the mom comes stumbling around the corner, and her dead body falls down the stairs and lands next to her.
She's walking. This is the part I
Yeah.
understand. How does that happen?
You know.
It happens again later on to where like there's someone standing there and you're like, what? And you're like, I don't know if this is the doll or if this is someone standing. And it's like, he's not tall enough to do this. It's not how people work.
Yeah. So yeah, she falls down the stairs, and then finally Chucky reveals himself at the top of the stairs, and this is what I mean by the bad 2008 Xbox graphics, where Chucky starts to walk down the stairs, and it's like this CGI. Like they show him a lot. Like I was like, guys, you didn't need to show him this much walking down these stairs, and it looks really bad. But he starts to chase after Nika. But thankfully, Nika just has emergency handicap or emergency wheelchairs and closets throughout this house. Because she like goes down the stairs and then just opens up a closet and pulls out a spare wheelchair and hops on it to roll away. She goes over to Alice's room, but you know Alice isn't in there. But she does see the dead nanny, so she knows she's dead now, and she's like, "Oh God," you know. Finally, she gets over to Ian's room and she wakes him up, and she's like, "Hey, everyone's dead. Alice is missing. Chucky is killing everyone." And he's like, "Oh my God." And then he like picks her up, and we get this like slow-mo. It's kind of weird in retrospect, where it's this slow-mo like him running away and putting her in a wheelchair just to roll her 10 feet into the garage and be like, "I gotta go back for my daughter." But you know, I guess they just wanted some slow-mo in the movie.
Well, there's also a weird scene where I don't know if this is before or during what you're talking about now, to where he's pushing her in the wheelchair and like Chucky's like spying on him.
That was then.
It's,
As
yeah,
they go into the garage, Chucky
yeah,
like
and
peeks
he's
around.
they're all creeping and stalking and stuff, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what are y'all doing? Y'all look dumb.
Yeah. So the dude leaves to go look for his daughter. Chucky sneaks into the garage, of course, and he gets into the car and starts it up. So it starts filling up with fumes and stuff. And I couldn't help but think that, you know, if that was how Nika went out, that's probably the nicest way Chucky's ever killed a victim in his life, right? Like, isn't that supposed to be like the most peaceful? Like, you just sort of go to sleep and you're dead.
No, it is very painful, very agonizing way to die. No one should ever try that. It
You
is
guys let
so
us know.
peaceful. No, it is the best way to go.
Yeah, I've heard.
No, but yeah, it's blood from your ass.
Oh God. um. So yeah, he's filling up the garage with the exhaust fumes, and then Nika picks up like a hatchet, and she breaks the window, and she goes to turn off the car, but Chucky takes the keys, and he's like, "Oh." He swallows the keys, and I was like, "All right, sure, dude." Um,
But then you realize he doesn't have those muscles because he's a doll, and they
yeah,
just fall out of his mouth, and you're like,
yeah.
oh.
So Ian comes back in, and Nika's like, Chucky, we gotta get out of here. But at this point, Ian now is starting to think that Nika has gone crazy and has killed everybody, and he's done something with her daughter. And this is, of course, when she starts having her heart problem. And from her night shift that she's wearing, she pulls out a needle. Like, I was like, where have you
I think
been?
maybe it was in the pocket of the
Of the
wheelchair,
wheelchair,
but as
maybe.
you mentioned, the wheelchair was in a closet, so
Yeah. Well, no, I do. They abandon the closet wheelchair, and he takes her downstairs and puts her in her original wheelchair. So
maybe that's where it was.
maybe
Yeah.
that's where it was. But I was like, all right, sure. And so she has it, and she's like, I need you to stab me under my rib. And I was like, well, why can't you do it? But, I guess she's having a heart thing, so maybe, can't really concentrate on it. But Ian, now thinking that, hey, this lady might have killed, all these people, is like hesitant to do it. And eventually I think he does, but he waits for her to pass out so he can like tape up her hands to the wheelchair. So when she wakes up, he's like, what did you do with my daughter? And
That's your
she's,
question.
yeah.
This lady's handicapped, can't move her legs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could you just put her in a normal chair?
Yeah, where she's going to go.
I mean, I don't mean to be rude.
She's just on the ground.
Yeah, just lay her out on the floor. Like, what is gonna... It seemed real redundant, like, to put her in.
Yeah, you could have just put the stick through the wheels.
You're going to hell, just so you know.
So Ian is like, what did you do with my daughter? And she's like, I didn't do nothing. So he's like, sock in the mouth, and he just gags her. I think it's really tape, but he gags her.
It is tape.
And he goes over and he starts watching the nanny cam footage. And so he's going through it, and we see like the mom and the girlfriend making out.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Also, it's the only thing in this movie that actually has a good radio reception, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or antenna strength or whatever,
Yeah.
because it's crystal clear.
Also, yeah, I was thinking that he had like gotten it back from Chucky, but apparently it's still on Chucky. Because as he's going through all this footage and he sees where Alice is, she's just in a closet that Chucky put her in. And she's like, all right, we're playing hide and seek. And Chucky's like, shut the fuck up. and she's like, Chucky, you need to stop cursing, He switches over to the live feed that apparently this nanny cam has, which makes sense. I guess nanny cams do have live feeds. And it's still on Chucky. Like, he's walking up behind them. So I don't know how he got this feed, but, whatever. And so then he turns around a little too late. And so Chucky has taken the wheelchair that Nika's in and see if he would have had the stick. And pushes it so it, like, hits him in the shin and makes him do a front flip. And so as he's laying on the ground, Chucky takes the hatchet that Nika had, and he's like, take this. And he comes down and, like, cuts the dude's bottom jaw off to where we see, like, that, like, what is it, the larynx or whatever, like, in the neck and stuff.
No,
like,
that was a spinal cord.
Was it the spine? I didn't
Yeah.
want to say spine and make myself look dumb. But now
The crazy part
I think
is
I have.
how a person in a wheelchair can get that much speed from 3 feet away.
Yeah.
That dude flipped. When it...
And he's not like a small guy. Like, he's got to be
Yeah.
at least like 195, 215, like somewhere around there.
I mean, he looked like 170 or something.
Listen, I like to make myself look better by
Yeah,
giving other people.
like, I'm barely out of average. What do you mean?
Yeah. So yeah, he kills he kills Ian, so Ian's dead now. And then he goes to chop up Nika, but Nika, like a thug, just unties herself and does like a pop a wheelie. So she takes the axe to the knee or to the leg, and so she's like, and she smacks him away, and then she pulls out the axe, and she like is swinging at Chucky, and finally she ends up cutting his head off. But once again, like I said, it's just like a doll head. Like there's no, it just goes flopping away, and I was like, oh, that's weird, you know. And so Chucky falls over, and she goes rolling away, and she sees like the big gash where she just got axed. So even though she can't feel the pain, she is losing blood. So she has to go, and she's like tying up her leg. And as she's doing that, they do basically like a Halloween shot where, you know, like Lori, and then you see Michael sitting up like behind her. But it's, you know, Nika, and you see Chucky sitting up behind her, and he puts his head back on. And he comes at Nika, and he takes her by the back of the chair, and he runs with her and throws her through the guardrail at the top of the stairs, where she does a front flip, and somehow lands on her stomach. So she did a full like 360 flip, and landed on her stomach at the bottom of the stairs. This is when we get a shot of Chucky walking down the stairs, and it's clearly a little kid in a Chucky outfit walking down the stairs, because it's like a top down, so you only see the top of his head. And so when Chucky gets down there, this is when he finally starts to tell her the backstory of why he's decided to, or why he's here to kill her. And he mentions that, well, first off, he mentions like, you know, he's taken care of a lot of families since you know, your family. And he mentions like the Barclays and the Tillys and whatever the fuck that other family was in Bride of Chucky. And he's like, you're the last one standing, metaphorically, of course. And I was like, that's a good one. So, yeah, so he starts to tell her the backstory, and basically, Chucky gets introduced to Nika's mom through a friend, and meets the husband and stuff, and becomes obsessed with her, I guess. So he kills the husband by drowning him. Either that, or he killed him and then just threw him in a lake, so they said he drowned. And then, like, kidnapping her and tying her up in, like, a basement. And he keeps bringing her sunflowers. This whole scene is in black and white, except for the sunflowers. The sunflowers are yellow, like very bright yellow sunflowers. And this is what I talked about, how Brad Dourif, they try to dress him up so he looks young, but he's not. Like, he's nowadays Brad Dourif doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, don't you want to be a family and stuff? And he's like, you know, you got to share me with the baby and share me with Barbara and all this stuff. And he, you know, and he's talking about all this shit. But then, like, the cops show up, and he's like, you told on me. And so she's pregnant with Nika, and he stabs her because he's upset now. And so that's how Nika wound up as she is because Charles Lee Ray stabbed her when she was a baby and caused her to be this way. And then, I guess, he's saying that then when he left, that's when the cops followed him and killed him at the toy store and everything, which in the TV show is they totally retcon and get rid of that, which is weird, but because they talk about how Tiffany is the one who set him up, and it was supposed to be like a robbery, and she gets mad at him because he like killed someone without her, and in their world that's basically cheating, like you killed someone without me, you know. And so she like calls the police and gets him killed.
Well, I want to say in the first movie, it was a botched robbery.
Yeah,
is what they say.
Because that's why Caputo was waiting for him, and then Eddie Caputo drove away. He was the getaway man. Like they totally just get away with that, and they come up with this weird backstory of him being like a kidnapper, psycho who's trying to take over a family. When at this point, Charles Lee Ray has just been like a cold-blooded killer. Who,
well, no, he's a serial killer who like would choke people out, right?
Yeah.
He was a choker.
Yeah.
or the smotherer. I forgot what it's called. They said
It
something.
was the Strangler. That was it. The Hash and Field Strangler or something.
Uh, it
But
was something.
yeah, but he's never been like this kidnapper weird. I don't know. This is what I mean. I hated this whole backstory. Like it's fine. I guess him stabbing the pregnant mom, and that's why Nika is how she is. But yeah, I don't know. I don't like the whole kidnapping and him. And then they basically ignore everything
Well,
before by being like, that's why he got killed that night.
she didn't seem the mom.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't seem like she was down for it, right?
Yeah,
Like it looked like he had kidnapped her and was
yeah.
keeping her like
But then
in the
she's painting the
painting sunflowers.
sunflowers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was like, this doesn't make sense to
I don't
me.
know. Yeah, I don't know if it's. I don't know. I don't know if it's maybe a little bit of what do you call it? The people who get kidnapped and they end up loving like their
Stockholm
captor.
syndrome.
Yeah, but it definitely didn't seem like she was that way when she was in the situation. Like I think it's usually people who are still in the situation are like, "Oh my god, I love." I watched a. You weren't there, but I watched a movie one week for the cast called the Poughkeepsie Tapes that has a lot to do with that about a girl with Stockholm syndrome, and like she's like has all these body parts missing, and she finally gets free after all this time. They never caught the guy. He just like left her there in the basement, and she's out maybe like a week or something, and she kills herself, and she like writes this whole letter about like my love for my God and all this stuff. It was a pretty unsettling movie, but it wasn't
Check it
great.
out. I'm sure you did a review for it.
Oh yeah, it's on the channel.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Go watch the Poughkeepsie Tapes. He like makes her wear this mask and stuff. It's really unsettling. The movie's not great, but it makes you feel weird in your tummy when you watch it.
Well, now they don't have to watch the review. You done gave it to them.
Well, no, either way. Anyway, but yeah, I didn't like this whole backstory thing. So I'm not sure how other people feel about it, but for me, I was like, this ain't it. This ain't it. Um, So anyway, yeah. So after he gets done telling that story, he's like, "Now I'm finally here to kill you." Uh, but Nika buys herself time by being like, "Well, did you ever kill Andy Barclay?" And he's like, "Well, I killed his childhood." And so she's like, "So you really didn't kill his child, or you didn't kill him?" And she's like, "And you must be the slowest murderer ever, because it took you 25 years to kill me," or what, And she starts laughing and shit.
So in the very beginning of this movie, her and this random UPS guy
Mm-hmm.
talk about how they're in the same psychology class,
Yeah.
and they go, "Oh, completionist syndrome."
Mm-hmm.
And the only point in the fucking movie, the whole reason we had to sit through 2 minutes of them talking, was so later on she could bring it up at this point.
Yeah.
And I died a little on the inside when I
No, yeah.
realized that's what it was for.
All right. Uh,
But anyways,
anyways, yeah. So she keeps on going on, and then eventually she's like, "What are you waiting for? A sign from God?" And then the lights kick on, and that also brings the power back to the elevator. And so both of them realize this at the same time. So she starts crawling, and Chucky's like, "Oh God!" And he goes to run, but he eats shit in the blood on the ground, and he like falls. So she gets in the elevator and closes it, but the power goes off as she closes it. So she's having to hold the elevator shut with her hands. So Chucky is just like slashing her hands and stuff, and she's like, and eventually she catches the knife. She pulls like a Hound season 4 fighting Brienne, and she's like holding it and stuff, and she's able to yank the knife away from Chucky. And she's like, "Come on, you want to do it? Let's go." And so Chucky like opens up the elevator, and he goes running at her, and he's like biting her and shit, and he gets like a good gash on her head. I'm not even sure how he did that, but he gets this good gash on her head. But eventually, she like stabs him in the back, and when she pulls it out, all like the fuzz comes out, shooting everywhere.
I
And this,
didn't realize that's what that was.
yeah, and it turns into this weird like it looks like it's snowing down on her.
And I was like, where the fuck is this snow? What?
Yeah,
What is going on?
I almost thought they were gonna do something crazy and it'd be like, oh, she really was crazy, and like that's the reveal that she just
Yeah.
killed this doll or whatever.
Would have been a better movie if they did that.
But yeah, so she stabs him, pulls it, all this fuzz is coming down. This is the time that the cop who was at that scene who the priest was his sponsor, shows up at the house. He's popped up a couple times throughout this movie, but it's not really important. All he's been doing is like making his way to
Whoa,
this
whoa.
house.
You forgot a 2 minute scene of him being on the thing, be like, I better go check out the house. And then he pops that epic, like, drift
Yeah,
to turn around and go.
I'm
And I'm
sorry,
like,
I
why?
take back what I said then.
Yeah, why did they show that? What is going I
Yeah.
was so. The movie
So
made me mad a lot of times.
he gets to the door and he's like, police, open up. And from inside, he hears Nika calling out for help. And so he busts in. But when he busts in, all he sees is Nika sitting there covered in blood, holding a knife, and the dead sister up at the top of the stairs with her eye missing and shit. And so you see like the moment on his face where he's like, it was this bitch, you know? And so he turns the gun on her. And then we sort of fade to black, and in the blackness we start hearing like, you know, the jury has found you guilty of being like criminally insane, and you're going to this insane asylum. And we come up and it's Nika at a court hearing, and they've deemed her, you know, mentally insane, and so they're sending her to this insane asylum because all these murders. And as she's being rolled out, she's going by like the table of the evidence, and it's like the rat poison, the hatchet, the knife, and Chucky sitting there. And as she's going by Chucky, she's like, I'm still alive. You still didn't get me, you know, and she's laughing as they're wheeling her away. And yeah, so they wheel her away, and Nika Pierce is still alive for the time being, going to this insane asylum. After that, we literally just recreate the beginning from Seed of Chucky, where that cop who arrested her takes the evidence bag that Chucky is in and goes out to his car and throws Chucky in the passenger seat, and he calls a number that doesn't answer, and he leaves a message saying, hey, I'm on my way, you better have my money. And then he looks over to the bag like he's about to open it. And I will say this was a nice touch, is you see like the air being breathed, you know, the bag sucking in when Chucky's breathing. And he's like, what the fuck? And then in the back seat, Jennifer Tilly pops up and cuts his throat. Same thing she did in Seed of Chucky. And she even says a line like, they never learn, you know? And so she opens up the bag and she looks at Chucky and she's like, who's next? And then we flash them at the airport where she's mailing Chucky off to somewhere. And we get a whole 2-minute scene of a bunch of shitty jokes about the package. Like, is it fragile? And she's like, surprisingly not. And like just all this stuff. It wasn't a very good scene. But Chucky gets shipped off. And he ends up at Alice's place. She's staying with the grandma now.
On the dad side, I guess.
Yeah. And Chucky's like, oh, hey, you know, I found you. You know, I told you I would find you. And she's like, yeah. And Chucky's like, listen, why don't we play this new game, Hide the Soul? Hey, Tyler, remember when we watched the last movie and Chucky had this big breakthrough moment where he was like, I'm tired of, you know, what's so good about being a person? I'm Chucky the killer doll, and I dig it. And I said how, oh, yeah, so now Chucky's done with doing this. Until he's not in the next movie. He literally does it in the next movie. Like, he does the soul thing. And he starts doing the whole spell, and it's zooming away, and then there's just a random cheap jump scare of the grandma, like, lifting up her head with a plastic bag around her head.
Is that who that was? I was
Yeah.
like, what?
And cuts the credits. But then at the end of the credits, we go to 6 months later, and a very grown-up Andy Barclay gets a package. And he, like...
Yeah, I didn't see that. That was the after credits, right?
Yeah.
So I went all the way to the face jump scare, and then I stopped. And then you told me, and I'd already closed it out.
Goddamn. So Andy gets a package, and he like puts the package on the kitchen table, and he goes and he gets a phone call, and he answers it, and it says mom, and I was like, oh hey, it's the mom.
Shit.
And he's like, oh hey, you know, I think Thanksgiving is coming up, and he's like, oh I'll bring the mashed potatoes, you know, you're cooking the turkey, right? And she's like, yeah, you know, and the talking. And as he's on the phone, he's like, oh, how's Mike doing? You know, Mike's the cop from the one, so I guess they're together. It pans over and we see like Clint Academy, the certificate, like he graduated, and a picture of like Kyle, his stepsister, and everything. And as he's talking, Chucky is cutting his way out of the box, and eventually Chucky busts out, and he's like, "Ah, yeah," and he turns around, and Andy is standing there with a shotgun, and Chucky is like, "Andy," and Andy is like, "Fuck you," and he shoots him with a shotgun, and that's the end of the movie. So don't ask me why or how, because I think they explain it. I'm not sure, but it sure seems like that spell was gonna work with that little girl. So I'm
That's
not
what, yeah.
sure why he's still Chucky 6 months later. Um, yeah. So
I'm confused. It did.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure they explain it. Not 100%, but pretty sure.
I'm
So
still confused. I'm
take
so
that.
confused.
Um, this movie had a budget of $4 million. Didn't have a box office, obviously, because it wasn't in theaters. But yeah, that's how it is. Let's do best of, worst of for Curse of Chucky. My best of is gonna be that girl.
Oh, wait, wait. You didn't read my notes.
Well, I was gonna do that after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My best of is the electrocution scene. I like the whole like lead up to it and his face as he does it, and her like melting. Even though it looks really shitty, I liked it. So take the good with the bad. Worst of, I don't know. I might honestly say the scene with Jennifer Tilly shipping Chucky off at the end. I don't like it. I don't know. Yeah. So there you go. It reminded me too much of Bride and Seed. I was like, no, don't take me back. So there's my best of, worst stuff for Curse of Chucky. Tyler, what's yours?
Um, it's hard to say. I know the worst. I made him think in my note even about the Jennifer Tilly part. I was like, man, this is a shit movie. How can they make it even shittier? Oh wait, Jennifer Tilly's in it. Never mind. Now it's real shit. But it's just because I'm a hater.
It is.
But yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna agree with you that the Jennifer Tilly part was
Okay.
the part that sucked it all to death. But
Yeah.
there's a scene, I think I put it in my notes, I don't know, to where I think it's where that girl gets electrocuted and it's toward the end. And Chucky's like sideways looking at her and he's
Yeah.
like grinning. And it's the most menacing shit I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that's what
And
I'm telling you.
I was like, fuck yeah, this
He
is.
had some really good facial expressions in this
I was
movie.
like, this is legit. So I'm gonna go with that.
All right.
But
There you go.
the eyeball scene was pretty cool too, where she was sitting there and she had the knife at her face.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you have your mother's eyes. They're always too close together, and it makes you think she stabs her right in the forehead.
Yeah.
He doesn't. I guess he cuts out her eye. But
Right.
I didn't really buy that from what I was seeing. But it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But
Anyways, I'm going through your notes. I see the here you go,
I don't even know what I
8:34
wrote.
p.m. Oh fuck. The husband knows his wife is a lesbo. Bet he jerks off to it. there's that one. The action music when the cop is on screen. The music ruins this fucking movie. I really didn't see the.
Oh,
I remember there was even points where the piano was kicking and I was like digging it.
it's because you didn't read my first one where I'm like,
I
this
see
guy they got.
the soundtrack just doesn't fit this movie. This dude trying to be Danny Elfman, but really he's just a DJ from a skating rink. Or ring or rink.
I don't know what you call the indoor ones,
Yeah.
right? Where the guy's like, "Hey," and he's just playing like now that's the '80s, and he's just.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of went over everything I said in the thing, but I don't think there's any.
Why did it start snowing in the house?
Yeah, that's when he stabbed her, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Yeah.
Hold on, let me look at my notes. She fell. Oh, she fell off the railing and she went flying forward. But if you look at the house, she landed like 2 feet from the railing, which she should have
Yeah.
went much further.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
yeah, I don't know.
All right.
How did she not fend off her raging toddler running at her? She
Yeah.
even called him out and was waiting for him.
Yeah.
Good
Once
questions. These are
again,
all good questions.
this is another one of those weird movies where he doesn't have the strength of a man. Like, he loses it sometimes. Like, he doesn't have that strength, but then sometimes he will. But, well, I guess maybe he does because he was pushing her around pretty good. But, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's the end for Curse of Chucky. Like I said, I really liked it. Tyler didn't. That happens a lot. So,
Every now and then we're on the same page.
yeah. I think it's more often than we give us credit for, but sometimes, doesn't disagree. Whenever we get around the Bone Tomahawk, that's gonna be one. But that won't be next week, because next week we'll be watching Studio 666, starring the Foo Fighters, where I think they're playing a death metal band who try to summon the devil to make a good album. Or something like that. I think that's the premise. I'm not sure. But I don't think they wrote it. I think they just star in it. I think someone else wrote it.
Crazy fact. One of the main actors in the movie died shortly after that film.
It did. Maybe it was the devil.
It probably was. Or heroin,
No.
Some would say they're the same thing.
Apparently the story was made by Dave Grohl. But it was directed by B.J. McDonald. Let's see what else this dude directed. Gonna be honest, he doesn't look very impressive.
Wait, does the screenplay say screenplay by Dave Grohl, originally by Kurt Cobain?
No, it does not.
It's where he's just, reheating more of his leftovers to try to stay relevant.
I like the fact that you still think this dude is doing Kurt Cobain leftovers 40 years after Kurt Cobain died, like almost. Somehow that dude just had that much material. He had all these songs about like people that weren't even alive yet, just written up. It's like
Are you implying that he isn't?
Yeah, it's like the Tupac Dave Chappelle sketch where he's like, he died in like '93 or whatever, and he's like, "I'm CJ from San Andreas." They're like, "What the fuck? How does he know?" And they're like, "I voted for George W." Talking about George W. White. He ran for city council. You probably didn't hear about. Such a good sketch.
What's wrong with you? It's like a horrible impression too.
I'm trying to do the Tupac, but it was Dave Chappelle doing Tupac, so you get. Anyway, apparently this dude directed Hatchet 3. So that's pretty cool.
Isn't that the guy? What movie did we watch where the Hatchet dude was in it? But he just kept talking about the Hatchet the whole time.
Oh, that was the guy who made Hatchet was the dude who did the inside of the marrow or whatever, or down in the marrow, whatever that movie was, about the hole where the monsters were.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was like a documentary he was filming or whatever. Yeah, and he made Hatchet, but yeah, I didn't watch Hatchet 3. I watched Hatchet 1 and 2. I never saw 3.
You're like, why do we need a third Hatchet? You only have 2 hands.
That guy, he wrote the screenplay for Hatchet 3, but he didn't direct it. So anyway, one of these days we'll get around to those Hatchet movies. The first 2 were enjoyable, in a slasher type of way. But I think
want to watch the Foo Fighter movie? You don't want to watch that weird Smile movie or whatever?
it just hit theaters, so we can't watch it for a while. Yeah, but we will because apparently people like it. So
we can go Sunday maybe and watch it.
We gotta go golfing.
It's winter.
No, that's the perfect time. You want to be sweating?
I remember the last time you were on a golf course in a borrowed jacket, and it wasn't a good look.
Wow. I can't believe
y'all went to Myrtle Beach last year or whatever, remember?
Yeah, I can't believe you would say that to me.
That it wasn't a good look? Or
it was 2 years ago. It was 2020.
Oh, was it?
It was February 2020, right before everything shut down. Yeah. Yeah, I saw a concert February 16th, I think, 2020. Because I looked at the ticket the other day because I was like, when? That was pretty... Yeah, so literally maybe a week before it closed down. And my favorite part is thinking back, like, that band, the guy was like, all right, this is the the first night of the tour, and I was like, ooh, that tour didn't.
It was it Ghost? I'm trying to
No,
remember
it
who it
was
was.
Highly Suspect.
Oh yeah, and you said it
Yeah,
was amazing. That's right.
that's not true.
That's not what he said, guys. He
Yeah. To
did
be
not give
fair,
it.
it was the music was fine, but we had went golfing before that, and we didn't eat anything. And then we get there, and it's House of Blues, so it's all standing, and we didn't get a good spot, so we couldn't really see anything great. And so it was just we were tired. So we got to see the last like maybe 5 or 6 songs pretty good because some people left, so we got like a rail seat and stuff, and we were watching. But yeah, they have a song called like Serotonia or something like that. Uh,
Serotonin.
I don't I know it's serotonin, but I think they spell it what? Anyway, but
San Antonio. Wait.
yeah, but the opening line is like, "I wish everyone I knew was dead, so that I never have to pick up the phone. I just want to be naked, masturbate all day long and shit." And I was like, I feel that. But anyway, but no one's calling me, so I don't have that problem.
I can't find my phone right now. I'd call you.
Oh yeah.
I
Anyway,
called you. I called you 4 days ago
you know,
because I was driving. I didn't want text.
I stand by my statement.
Don't call you very often. Text a
Hey.
lot, but no.
Yeah.
All stuff. Anyways, thanks
Anyways,
guys for joining us.
yeah,
Stay in tune next time for
you can do it.
more
I just
cocaine
said it.
leftovers.
Okay.
I don't remember the name of it, but it's that Foo Fighters movie, guys.
It is
So,
it's the Foo Fighters movie. So that'll be something. Yeah.
I think it'll be good. I haven't heard anything about it, so
I've heard that it's it's like a comedy horror thing, I have heard if you're a fan of the Foo Fighters, you'll enjoy it, but Tyler is not a fan of the Foo Fighters. So, yeah. I have
I
also
would.
heard guitarist for the Pat Schmier. If you've ever watched an interview with Pat Schmier, he always just sort of has this smile going on, and apparently the whole movie, even as all this shit's going on, Pat Schmier is like, "Oh my god." He's got like a little smile going on. So, anyway. But yeah, that'll be next week, and then after that, we only have Cult and then the remake, and we're done with
What's the
little
premise
Chuck.
for Colt? Or is
Cult
it
takes
giving something away?
place inside of the insane asylum with Nika.
I don't even know who Nika is.
Nika's the main character of this movie, the cripple.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he does go back. He does go back for
Yeah, he goes back.
unfinished business.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, anyway. All right. Thanks for watching. See you guys next week. Studio 666. And bye.